All right. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and put this up here for a minute. All right, guys. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I don't have a name for this yet. You know what I'm saying? So I'll name this segment later. Dude, where's my SnortBucks? Dude, I don't smell no bacon cooking. You know what I'm saying? Spit that grease. I don't know. I'll figure out. We'll figure out something as time goes on. You know how I do. In any case, I'd like to speak to you guys for a minute. So, you know what I'm saying? It's early as hell and shit, so why don't you guys take a seat? And breakfast is on me, so order whatever you feel. And I thought I'd run some things by you guys real fast. Now, I'm actually going to have to do 2 of these. And one of these should be out today. Because initially, the Snort report that was supposed to follow up the Keemstar Review Tech USA thing was supposed to come up today. That needs to be pushed back because yesterday, if this goes out on the day it's supposed to, yesterday was episode 1 of Smart Guy's Revival, or whatever it's called. Carbon copy. You couldn't even pick another championship belt. You had to go ahead and copy and paste the situation that you had with John. You didn't respect John enough for what you and John did to even get a new title belt. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to keep the name, fine, but you couldn't have at least done a new title belt or nothing? Just whatever, right? All right. So I have a lot of stuff to talk about that, but we'll do that on the next video. For this one in particular, I wanted to talk about this new segment that that PPP and Phil are going to have, this whole grill Phil thing, which is funny because, you know, I said in the video that came before this, or a little while ago, earlier this week, last week, whenever it came out, that I thought PPP would grill DSP on WWE champions. To be honest, it sounds like they're going to take that and go further. PPP is going to grill DSP on WWE champions and then whatever other lies that Phil's being accused of. Smart, to be honest, and I'll explain that in a minute. But the first segment of this is they're tackling WWE champions. If I feel like I'm interested in what the subject matter is week to week, I'm not putting too many stakes on how many weeks this is going to last. But if I'm interested in what the topic is, I may very well go over it on a weekly basis, I should say. So we'll see. But let's talk about this week. And let me talk about how it's actually kind of smart to do this. So yesterday, PPP basically springs on DSP, you know, hey, are you down from the rafters? You know, just come clean with it, man. It's no big deal. It's not a big problem. And DSP was like, oh, I was, but I sold the account. And, you know, PPP's like, wait a second, bruh. Wait a second, dude. You know, that's breaking TOS, yada, yada, yada. Oh, well, I saw other people do it, so why can't I? Which is funny from someone who tries to portray himself as a stickler to the rules and regulations and all that bullshit, right? And PPP pressed him, but he did it, I think, in a very subtle type of way. It wasn't like, you know, Phil, you're a massive liar, whatever, woo, woo, woo. Just go ahead and come clean with this. He was like, you know, Phil, come on, man, it's not that big of a deal. You know, who cares, right? You say it yourself. No one cares. No one talks about it. It's not a topic of discussion anymore. Just go ahead and come clean with it. You're still down from the rafters. Just go ahead and just come out and admit, oh, no, man, I sold it. I got rid of the account, yada, yada, yada. And then Phil goes into this diatribe, this pathetic excuse of, oh, well, I have to keep the mythos going. You know, it's good to keep the mythos going. By saying that, he's just admitting that he's lying. He's admitting that, yeah, he still is that, but he's going to run with the gimmick if he can still profit from it, if he can still benefit from it. And it's funny that with PPP, oh, I want to keep the mythos going. But last week, you know, detractors are all liars. He wish he could sue. They're ruining his life. They're ruining his reputation, so on and so forth, yada, yada, yada. So which one is it? Is it all part of the mythos? It's all part of the gimmick. It's all part of the mystique of who Phil Burnell, DSP, Darksydephil, Dark Geppetto is. Or are detractors, trolls, haters, and critics all liars, and they should be sued for defamation and slander? Is it being blown up, being that it's your own personal business and no one really gives a shit, no one should give a shit, and it's just a bunch of mentally ill people taking a small bit, a nugget, if you will, of truth, and blowing it up into something that isn't. Which one is it? Because, you know, some myths turned out to be lies or misunderstandings, and a lie can easily be turned into a mythos, you know what I'm saying, if you want to push it far enough. So which one is it? Well, one of the main problems that he has with the bullshit that he ain't pulled yesterday is now, instead of, not that I'm trying to give anybody ideas, but instead of trying to go at DSP's Down from the Rafters actual account, theoretically, I'm surprised anyway, that no one has struck his second account, the account that he was using, that he was actually using on stream. He was spending money on, and this, that, and the third. Now, most of you are going to say, well, Golden, it doesn't mean shit to him. You don't care. It's a throwaway account anyway that he did to convince a bunch of dents that to basically give him a dopamine fix every time they played WWE champions. Which you're right. You're absolutely right. It's a throwaway account. Why would he care about it? Well, here's the thing. If any aspects of that account is linked to Down from the Rafters, and this guy is running around saying that, hey, I sold that account, it's not mine, it don't exist, then if they were to take down that second account, wouldn't they theoretically take down any accounts that are associated with it? Now, most of you are saying, well, wait a second, if he allegedly sold the account, wouldn't he be screwing somebody else over? Well, didn't Phil say that he had a iPad that, you know, it was broken, but he still owns it? Bankruptcy call, 341. But didn't he say that he tried to charge it up, and then he realized that it did work, and then he was going to use the account information that was on that iPad to log in, go backdoor it, basically the account that he sold, to prove that he sold it? Didn't he say he was going to do that? So theoretically, shouldn't Scopy hit his ass for that, being that you're trying to infiltrate another account that no longer belongs to you? Isn't that against terms of service? Strike two, basically. On top of that, with the lie that he's orchestrating now, anybody who I think is a bit more competent, I said, than myself, could make the argument that, hey, maybe Down from the Rafters needs to be taken down temporarily until we find out what the actual deal is with that account. I think it's actually a fair point to make. You got one guy who said he owned the account, but he sold it off. That breaks terms of service. And then you have, this guy has another account where he was kind of splurging on, and doing some other silly shit on. And he says that, but he also tried to backdoor that same account that he tried to sell. So maybe the account that he's currently using, or he was using, that needs to be shut down because he broke terms of service. And maybe this second account, or the Down from the Rafters account, needs to be investigated to see what's what with that. Now, yet again, this is a big reach on my part. But it would be funny if that happened. Because if it is DSP, which it is, and if there is any disruption in that account, he's going to freak the hell out. Which I think is what the hell we want. I think it's just content farming for the sake of content farming. I don't know. That's something that I like to hear. Now, back to PPP. If PPP breaks the story, I mean, it only makes Kino Casino look good. Theoretically, even though we already knew who DSP was with this account, by Kino Casino getting Phil to admit it on their show, gave them major points. If he can get Phil to actually admit, you know, hey, Phil, just come clean and say it's yours. Who cares, right? You know, time has gone on, yada, yada, yada. Everybody already believes it anyway. Just go with it. Just say that you're still Down from the Rafters and whatnot. If he can get him to do that, he may be able to convince Phil to actually show us the account. Or, you know what I'm saying, prove definitively. Getting him to log in, not show his credentials or anything, but trust me, it won't take long for people to figure that out. But getting him to, you know, at least getting him to log in real quick on stream, you know, on his phone, and then turn the phone around and show, okay, yeah, this is my account. If no one cares, if it was all blown up out of proportion for no reason, why would it matter? Why would it matter? If it's your money and you can spend it any way you want, why would it matter? If PPP can chip away at that over the span of weeks or months, I think he can get Phil to break. I think he can get Phil to break. Now, I'm not saying he can, but I think he can. I think he can do it if he comes at him subtly and then progressively put the heat on his ass. And one of the ways to do that is the way that he's talking about doing it now, by having this weekly segment where he gets DSP comfortable with talking about some of the allegations, if you will, excuse me, some of the allegations that are against DSP, and getting him to dispel it, like right to his face. Hey, you're being accused of this. Can you tell us right now on the show, brief, and it doesn't need to be any more than like 10 minutes. Can you dispel that this isn't true, and why? And if he can do that, and if he can do it right, I think he can chip away. I think he can chip away at DSP's defenses and allow DSP to get comfortable enough to where he may very well say it. We'll see. This is just me speculating. On top of the fact that for DSP, given how the show, at least how the show did yesterday, at least financially, because everything else is a whole other can of worms that I'll open up in a minute. But how the show performed financially yesterday, and now that I know that there is a 50-50 split, when I put my initial video up, I didn't know that yet, but now we know it's a 50-50 split. DSP is going to want to keep Kino Casino in pocket. He's going to want to keep PPP in pocket, I should say, more importantly. Keep Kino Casino, PPP in pocket, or Triple P, as you know, we all like to call him. Keep Kino Casino in pocket, and then even more important than those two things, keep the pay pigs in pocket. Do I think DSP would sacrifice admitting the WWE champions thing to keep those guys in play? Possibly, but it's going to take time for that to happen. And given what I saw yesterday with DSP's insecurities, and realizing that even if he was up on the product, he's still completely and utterly out of the loop on how the business works and everything like that. And how DSP has no understanding of how a show should flow. And how to not only tell the story of what he saw, but also express his opinions with someone else who's incredibly competent with how you know the business works and whatever, or at least on what he perceives. He needs the help even more so than I initially slandered him for. Slandered, if you want to call it that. I said that PPP was going to need to carry that show, and I was right. And that's very, very apparent. That's right. And PPP was trying to dictate a type of pacing that Phil was completely and utterly disrupting. And it's wild to me that for someone who speaks all day, doesn't understand pacing, not only for himself, but dealing with another person. But even more funnier than that, or ironic, if you will, isn't it ironic, Shawn Michaels' voice, is that it goes to show his social shortcomings. This thing with PPP, this whole podcast or whatever, should be a massive wake-up call to Phil, and how being a hermit for all these fucking years, and him being socially inept by not speaking to someone who is actually competent, you know, just sitting there surrounding himself with yes men and dents and all that bullshit, has really hindered him, or has really crippled him, to be honest with you, on him ever being perceived or taken seriously in an interview, in a podcast, in anything, to be honest with you. This right here only coincides in what we saw with the Side Scrollers interview, with all the interviews that he conducted leading up to Stuttering Craig and even after the fact, and why episode 1 showed up the way it did, or how it played out the way it did. If you're a PPP, or Triple P as we all like to call him, or a Kino Casino fan, you got a massive win out of this. And then I'm hearing that on Kino Casino last night, they talked about Phil, and they had a good laugh, or they razzed Phil, if you will, whatever you want to call it, cope, at his expense. And that should be interesting to hear on the Bottom Bitch podcast today, on how he's going to handle that. But at the end of the day, Kino Casino is gonna come out on top because it is content farming. they can make some money off of Phil, which it sounds like that's what they're going to do. That pans out. So they're going to literally harvest Phil. You know what I'm saying? They're going to sit there and their PPP is already marinating his ass. And instead of putting his ass to the grill, really, they're going to smoke him. You know what I'm saying? They're going to put his ass in a slow cooker, or they're going to smoke him. And it's going to be low and slow. And the PPP, if he plays it right, is going to peel away at DSP's fucking ego, which is what I would want. And I don't know how far he's going to get with it, but I think there's going to be there could be some pretty good gold dust that could come out of this if PPP plays it right. And even if it don't, and it ends abruptly, PPP still wins. As well as garnering some type of interest with wrestling outside of Kino Casino. All he needs, PPP, I mean, or Triple P as we like to call him. I love that gimmick, by the way, it's hilarious. All PPP needs is someone else to run OBS. All he needs is someone of any level of understanding as it pertains to wrestling, or who's willing to at least learn wrestling, to bounce off of occasionally, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? That's all he really needs. And theoretically, if he can get OBS down and get his settings, he could probably run it solo. And he could just bounce off the chat. You know what I'm saying? But PPP is already establishing himself, as I said he was going to, as the draw. Phil is just there. Now, we'll speak on that further in the next one of these, where we'll actually go over the show as a whole, and then I'm going to actually go over the actual podcast itself in a much longer form thing, which it was like 2.5 hours, maybe 3. I want to listen to it maybe one more time before I decide to tackle that. But it is pretty much what I expected. To be honest, I didn't have any high expectations. You really shouldn't with Darksydephil, to be honest with you. He showed a lot of shortcomings. He showed a lot of gaping holes, if you will. PPP didn't allow him to ever really stay comfortable, and you could see that. And you can see Phil's hesitation and his desperation in some ways of trying to pull his own weight or trying to establish himself while still backpedaling and saying, oh, I've been out of the thing for 5 years. I've been out of the thing for 5 years. No one wants to hear that with every other question that's posed to you. And Phil's an idiot, and he don't want to actually take responsibility for anything. That is blatantly his fault. So he throws that 5-year thing up there to try to absolve himself from not knowing or understanding how the business works, and it's just not gonna work. You're just gonna allow PPP to shine even brighter that way. So whatever. In any case, we'll see how this whole grilling Phil each and every week goes. I think him starting off with the WWE Champions thing, which is what I expected anyway, I think was a smart move. Get it established. Phil definitely looked incredibly uncomfortable. If you don't know or if you haven't seen it yet, Expand Dong actually had segments about 3 or 4 minutes long. If I can have the editor put it down in the description, it'll be there and you can check that out. And I think he did it the right way. I honestly think he did it the right way. I think he put the type of pressure on Phil that he needed to without being incredibly overbearing or forcing Phil to get defensive per se. And I think if he's laying down the foundation, that he can chip away at Phil over time. But we'll see. That might be me just thinking in the long term, and I may be just overthinking it, because that's not something that would surprise anybody at this point. In any case, big ups. I appreciate you guys kind of sitting around with me for a second, hearing my thoughts initially on this nonsense, and I very much appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys for the next one of these, which is going to be coming soon. And then, like I said, I'm going to do a video that coincides with all of these. It may not be back to back or whatever. I'm still working on how that's going to work. But any one of these that you see, there will be a video that will, or a snort report, if you will, that will coincide with it. So that's a thing. Thank you guys again. Take care of yourselves. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later, people.